Quickly before we get into it, just so you know, this video is me doing a breakdown of my live reactions and then predictions as we go through the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and then the finals, and then a wrap up of why that might have happened. But if you don't want that and you just want to know who won, jump to the timestamp. It's right there for you. Before we get into it, this model, do you think this is a valid proxy for a normal Wrecker Crew fighter? Should I be allowed to run it? Drop a comment. Let me know what's the community's thoughts. I think it should be a valid proxy. Let me know. Let's get into the video now. Hello, everybody. Andy here from Glass Half Dead, the #1 kill team channel on YouTube. Unless, of course, you are aware of any other channel on YouTube, in which case I've lied to you. Hello, everybody. So we've just had the Kill Team World Championships over in Atlanta. It's an invitational, 130 players. A lot of interesting stuff. If you recall, I did a video last week before Dead Silence dropped, which was going over the pick rates. There's a lot of interesting things. Very brief rundown. 22 Deathwatch players, Canoptech Circle. We have 5% of the teams making up 40% of the players. I said a bunch of other stuff. Cool. Right. Let's get into it. You are now going to see me editing this video as I watch it live. Oh, okay. Well, what a great shot there. There's a game going on behind that arm, I promise you. And I just want to very briefly break down kind of the quarterfinals, and then when they update at the end of today, I'm going to look at the semis and then finally talk over the finals to see if we can figure out why things have happened. But I'm doing it in order to hopefully grow a little bit of interest for you in how things have turned out and how my predictions can kind of go incredibly wrong, would be my guess. So the most interesting thing looking at the quarterfinals is we need to see who's made it. What's the actual top 8? We have Mandrakes, Canoptech Circle, Deathwatch, Phobos, Felgor, Felgor. So, double Mandrake, double Felgor, double Canoptech, Deathwatch, Phobos. Interesting. And we need to talk about what happened to all the Deathwatch and all the Canoptech before getting to this quarterfinal, right? So very briefly, the game took place over in a series of pods. Therefore, they try to evenly space the teams, like the factions throughout the pods, it does seem. But, you know, when you have 5% of teams making up 40% of all players, uh, I guess what I'm trying to say here is the fact that there are not more Canoptechs and Deathwatch in the top 8 does not necessarily mean that those teams actually suck. It probably means two things. One is that the mirror match knocked most of them out. To get into the top 8, I think you had to have all wins, or at least that's probably how it should have been worked out. Possibly some of them got through and you could get through with a draw, or one loss, maybe. And so when you get to the top cut, in case you don't know how a pod works, it's going to be pods, so a smaller group, because you can't just, we don't just want 130 people playing. You could do that, to be clear, you could do that and just have the Swiss work itself out. But they like to do pods these days. And the way that's going to work is that, let's say it's a pod of 10, it's a nice easy number, and you've got, statistically, what, 4 Canoptech, 4 Deathwatch, and 2 others, right? You're not going to get 100% of Canoptech and Deathwatch going through undefeated because they're all going to play each other. So you have 4 Deathwatch fighting each other. 2 of those Deathwatch win. This has happened in the pods, to be clear, because there were so many Deathwatch. I think it was pod 8 where that happened. Now, that's 50-50'd it, but then because 2 of the Deathwatch won, they go forwards again, and they 50-50 each other again. So because there were so many Deathwatch and Canoptech, they didn't just 50-50 each other. That's not how mirroring works. There are a total of 9 rounds? I think there's more than that. I think there's actually like 10 rounds in total. We'll get to that later, once we're actually talking about the finals. So basically, they bisected each other, they halved each other every single round. That's just how these things work. So don't think, so in a way, it's kind of a self-defeating problem in that regard, which is good for us because it should mean, just by weight of numbers, that other teams kind of pull through. Anyway, right. With that said, before we have a quick think about how Mandrakes and Canoptech and Felgor got through, I want to do a very quick subscriber only benefit. So subscribe, leave a comment, like if you want yourself a big double hello. Wow, so wholesome. Truly the wholesomeness knows about the world of glass half dead. Hey, also, if you like what I'm doing, do consider clicking on my affiliate links. It gives me a little kickback and, gives you no extra cost. But if you don't like me, you just happen to be here because you want the Kill Team news, find your favorite Warhammer creator. They have affiliate links. Click those. And if you want some cool stuff to transport and use with your teams, consider Crossfire or GG Easy. I use both of these for different variations. I've just done a Crossfire video where I explain everything they have and when I use them. I'll be doing a GG Easy very soon. Okay, so we don't need to talk about Canoptech. We know why they're good. Cool. I also don't think we need to talk about Death Watch. If I'm entirely honest, I think we also know why they're cool. Nice. Also, I'm going to say, I don't inherently have an issue with these two teams getting to the finals. That's good. They're good teams. Good. Love it. And these are all good players, obviously. I really like that we can talk about the quarters now, because whereas before I had to kind of say, oh, well, some of the golden tickets were won in like 3-round events, very small, and some were won in 100 plus players and massive and 9 rounds and blah, blah, blah. Now we know that every player here, regardless of if they actually make it to podium or come first, they're clearly good players. They've done an amazing job. To get to this point, they had to win 7 rounds, or I think 6 rounds. Oh no, I think the quarters are 7 rounds. Yeah. So this is amazing. All of these players are genuinely world class, and who comes first, in my opinion, is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Now, with that said, let's guess who's going to win what. So, if you go back and maybe I'll put in some effort and edit it in here, I said when looking at why people picked some of the teams, I openly said that I think Mandrake's are a really strong team, and I also think that Felgor Ravagers are a really strong team. So the fact that they have made it to the quarterfinals is actually I'm a little bit surprised by, because I'm not a good player. And so normally when I say things that go against better players' thoughts, I say it because I think it, but I don't think I'm actually right, if that makes sense. Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, Mandrakes are a great team. They're in a great place at the moment. They have a decent matchup into Deathwatch. I actually don't know how they handle the Canoptech matchup, but presumably they can. In fact, right behind me right now, we have the Canoptech versus Mandrake match. So as you can see, I'm going to guess who's going to win this before it happens. There you go. That's fun, isn't it? Place your bets. So let's go for it. I think that because they've both made it to this place, I actually think Mandrakes are going to take this match. The reason I think Mandrakes are going to beat Canoptech, even though Dan Barton, to be clear, playing the Canoptech there from England. So you would think that I would be supporting that side, but I have zero patriotism or nationalism inside me at all. Down with England. But basically, I think that if you've got into this round, although I do think that Mandrakes are a strong team, I think that when Mandrakes released, they were a bit of a pickle for everybody, and people had to intensely play against them to figure out how to beat them, because they are a tricks-based team, okay? And then everybody figured it out, and people stopped playing Mandrakes because they weren't new anymore, and people knew really well how to beat them. Mandrakes have then not been played for 2 years, essentially, and they have now come back out of nowhere. Nobody expected this many Mandrakes to make it to the finals, okay? So that means that Dan has probably, the Canoptech players here, have probably played quite a lot into other Canoptechs, so playing the mirror, into Deathwatch, into other bogeymen that they think they would struggle with or are just generally strong teams. Any of the SNA tier teams. Mandrakes, he will not have played against. So he roughly knows what they do, and of course he's going to do a rundown with his opponent at the start, and his opponent's going to very freely tell him, hey, here's what my team does. And he's going to say, okay, cool, thanks. And he's obviously played them before. He's a very good player, very experienced, plays a lot. But I think that it's not fresh enough in his mind that unless we get some crazy dice rolls, I do think that clearly Netra, the Mandrakes player, has what it takes to beat Canoptech. He has beaten Canoptech before. I did check. Oh, if you're wondering how to check, by the way, you need an account on BCP. I don't know if you have to be a subscriber and pay. I'm not sure. I do because I felt like I've got to for this. But there you go. I don't use BCP otherwise. You have to go to tournaments to use it, right? There you go. So I think Mandrake's going to take this. We then have Mandrakes into Deathwatch. Now, interestingly, on the weekend, I was playing Deathwatch into Mandrakes. So I'm suddenly very, very familiar with this matchup. I played twice. I won one. I lost one. But I'm a scrub. And the player I was playing against, although he used to be a good player, is now also a scrub. So I can picture this in my mind, and I actually think that Mandrakes have a good match into Deathwatch because Deathwatch do not have the models to lock down Mandrakes. And then all Mandrakes have to do is pop around the board. I don't know how these guys are playing their tac ops. Are they going pure positional and flanking? Are they trying to mess around in other ways? Obviously, infiltration is very strong at the moment. People believe with a kind of enhanced version of confirmed kill. You can flank if you think you have the movement for that. And who has the movement for that? Mandrakes, exactly. Yeah, so it would be interesting to know how they're playing it. But again, I actually would give this to the Mandrakes again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we find Mandrake versus Mandrake in the semis, which again is a bit of an issue because we might get the mirror. And so we don't, which is good because we don't really want a mirror finals, right? But it would be very interesting to then have that discussion of why do we have a mirror final, right? We then have Phobos into Felgor. Now, my very rough knowledge of Phobos into Felgor is that, again, I have said that Felgor are a strong team in the past. I think they're still good. I personally have never really known why they fell out of favor. But they did for a long time, and at the beginning of this edition, I remember seeing it quite a lot on Reddit, because I'm a lurker, where a lot of people were generally saying, "Oh, Felgor suck. Why can't I beat Marines?" And I was really, really confused because I feel like Felgor have a decent match into Marines. Apparently they don't. There you go. However, I am aware that in the last edition, Phobos did quite well into Felgor because it's quite easy to get crits, and that double shot means you're double tapping Felgors very consistently. So if I just had to guess Phobos versus Felgor, I would guess Phobos. We then have do I think that? Yes. I'm saying that, but I am gonna put a proviso that I think Phobos in general no, sorry. I'm sticking with that. Phobos beat Felgor with the proviso that I am not good at Phobos, and I've played them once at the beginning of this edition and never again, so I don't have, like, a great knowledge of them. I just know that they've got those lethal 5 bolters, and they can probably smash Felgor with that. There you go. But will the Felgor be able to lock them down with charges? Who knows? But if we assume that these are both strong players, and we assume that people in general are saying that Felgor are not good, despite them being in the finals or the quarters, I will say Phobos take it. Cool. Right. We then get Canoptek versus Felgor. I struggle to imagine how this matchup goes, but I think that the key for the Felgor here is that 10 wound profile. Their plan here is charge the enemy, get their hits, don't die, frenzy attack, and that is going to be enough to swarm the enemy. And tac op wise, are they going to go with kills? I kind of have to assume so. But the problem with going kills, I don't even know what the other tac op for Felgor is. What can they actually do? Should I find that out? Why not? Felgor Ravagers, what do they do? What's their other tac op? Recon. That doesn't feel very thematic. But I would actually guess into Canoptek you're going recon because I don't think Seek and Destroy is the play into a team with such aggressive expendable operatives. So I would imagine, total guess, that they're going to go flank. They're going to be very aggressive on the charge. Yes, the Canoptek are able to be fast with the warriors and push into the enemy flank. But I think that, yeah, I'd be very interested to know how this goes, but I do give this to the Felgor, and I assume that they are going to play flank and go super aggressive and lock the enemy down. Kind of leave one or two back on their, like one on their objective, so it can't just be stolen. Oh, I don't know what crit op they're playing as well. Should point that out. And then they're going to go to the central objective and spread out from there and make sure that they lock the enemy in their side. They're happy to die, but I assume when they're frenzied, they still score flank, right? Like, that's amazing. If you stay alive on frenzy, you are scoring flank significantly better than if you're not. And that's my guess for the coursers. So with that said, I'm going to cut here and I'm going to drop forwards to when we get the semis. So we know who's won and we go over where I went wrong, where I went right. And I will see you then, which for you is literally now. Okay, so our semi-final has ended up being Canoptic Circle versus Felgor Ravagers and Mandrakes versus Felgor Ravagers. So the way that broke down is that I was watching the Canoptic Circle versus Mandrakes match, so I can talk a little bit about that. Then I'll just talk about my guesses about why things happened the way they did. And then I'll speculate what the final will be, figure out why that went that way. So basically, I was watching it, both the Canoptic Circle guy and the Mandrake guy. At the end of the game, you know, you always get to hear a little player wrap up. I was like, why did that happen? Um, they both agreed. You know, you never quite know if one of the players is just being humble and the other one agrees with it, or if it's just an honest analysis of the game. But they both agreed that basically on the critical rolls where it was needed, the Mandrake player just got nothing. I think at one point he rolled 5 dice, got 1 hit. You know, when he was needing 3s, great. And then yeah, basically the Canoptic Circle, Dan Barson, the guy playing the Canoptic Circle, even outright said, it's recorded on the Squad Games chat, which is here, that I'm actually watching in the background when I'm not recording a video. He straight up said, I diced you. And I will say, I just thinking back to last Worlds, exactly the same thing happened there, again against a Spanish player, where the Spanish player makes, you know, the best option he can, and he goes in, goes hard with his melter, completely fluffed it. So instead of killing a sorcerer, did nothing. Yeah, if you go into a trade with that kind of elite team, you're screwed. So very interesting here to see that it happened again. To be sorry, I have to now clarify. I'm not in any way suggesting that there's any actual like dice manipulation at all. They have to use stream dice, so like there's no opportunity for weighted dice, anything like that. I'm just saying luck of the dice. Kill Team is a game. You know what? I had exactly this on the weekend when I was playing my Death Watch into somebody's Mandrakes, and my dice were average. Throughout the game, I have no doubt that I rolled as many 6s as I rolled 1s, and as many 2s as I rolled 5s. I truly believe that my dice were completely average. However, they were the wrong way round. I got the 6s when I needed the 1s, and like it was horrifying. And the way Kill Team works is because it is such a lethal game, average dice actually don't matter. Your dice probably are average roughly, right? But if you have your big play and you fluff it, and then the enemy goes for the trade and they ace it, you've probably lost the game because of dice on that roll. You don't need average dice. You need good dice when they matter, which is a little bit frustrating, to be honest. It's quite, I will say, as an observer of the game that likes to imagine that these people in these semi-finals, in these finals, are just straight up better than I could ever be. It's kind of disheartening to see them just say, yeah, I diced you. Sorry. Like, you rolled bad when you needed good. There was no player skill involved. Like, yeah, so there you go. Anyway, looking forwards to it, who do I think is going to win in Canoptic Circle versus Felgor Ravagers, which is the game that's on stream at the moment? And then who do I think is going to win Mandrakes versus Felgor Ravagers? So let's be clear. I would love, just for the salt, just for the, it would be delicious. The amount of salt added to the Kill Team pie would be delish if we ended up in a Felgor mirror. There you go. That would be, I'd love it. just because, yeah, that would be funny. There you go. I will also point out that because we see here, right, 40K semis, Sigmar semis, Underworld semis, I will point out very briefly here, the potential for a finals mirror does not exist in any of these other matchups. Kill Team is the only game that has ended up with a possible mirror. There you go. In fact, if it hadn't been luck of the dice, we could have even had almost a guaranteed mirror as mandrakes. We would have ended up with our semis being 2 mandrakes, 2 Felgors, which frankly would have been embarrassing. Like genuinely, as someone that Kill Team's my main game, I play it more than any other game. I talk about it a lot. That would have been embarrassing. So I'm quite glad that hasn't happened. But if we end up in the Felgor mirror, that's also going to be a little bit awkward. But it's fine, I guess. Anyway, so let's think about it. Canoptech versus Felgors. So my understanding is that basically the way you want to deal with Felgors is you lock them down. And Felgor Ravagers are a very good team that's going to be able to do that. Frenzy is very strong into a team that uses accurate because they don't care about your accurate. You need crits. So that means, in a sense, the part of what makes Canoptech so strong doesn't matter. They have to roll their dice. Now, you're still fishing for a crit, but you're fishing on a crit on 4 dice normally, and we know those stats pretty simple. It'll be an interesting one. I'm definitely curious to see how that works. I'm curious to see what they're both going to be playing, attack op wise. Both of these teams in the semis are playing on Tomb World. There you go. However, if I had to give it to somebody, I don't know. I don't want Canoptech. Hold on. Do I want Canoptech Circle to win so they get nerfed again? Or do I want Felgor Ravagers to win because they're a weird, quirky team that nobody paid attention to? Coincidentally, in my last video, I said are really good. So I was surprised they weren't being run more. Do I want to be right? Or do I want to be all right? A pickle. So ignoring the players, because I actually don't know Bappo at all. Never seen him play. Fine. Cool. Just thinking Canoptech into Felgor, I would naturally lean towards Canoptech taking this. However, due to the fact that these Felgor have made it to the final, I reckon they're going to take it. There you go. Felgor are not the most complex team. And I don't think the way that they are going to have to play into Canoptech. Wait, I said it the wrong way around. Felgor, yeah, are not the most complex team. And I think that the way they're going to have to play into Canoptech is going to be easy. And so I think that is a good thing. No doubt, Bappo has played his Felgor throughout these past 10 rounds and knows exactly what he's doing. He will have defeated several Canoptech already getting here, I've no doubt. That's just how the numbers shake out. Whereas Canoptech Circle down here will not have had to deal with Felgor Ravagers probably for like 2 years. So he knows what they do roughly, but there's a big difference between knowing what they do roughly and knowing how they do at the semi-finals of Worlds. So I'm going to say Felgor Ravagers on this one. We then have Ace, of course, everybody's favourite Spaniard, playing Mandrakes into Dillingil from India, playing Ravagers, Felgor Ravagers again. Ooh. So let me think about this. I think that... Ooh. So we know they're on Tomb World. So I think the Mandrakes have a really good play into... what are they called? Elites. You know what? I think Mandrakes are very strong. But I actually think Felgor Ravagers have an edge on them because they have more models, and both teams here are killing the other guy in 2 hits. So any attack is just really good. With the difference being that when the Mandrakes attack, they need a crit to get that 2-hit kill because there'd be 4-5, lethal 5, But the Warriors will be 4-6, so they need a crit hit, which means they're not actually super great into killing the Felgors. But then, of course, all of them have lethal 5, so they get crits really easily. So they are able to knock out the Frenzy. You know what? Interesting match that not many people will have played in the past 2 years. But I actually think, although I think Mandrakes are really strong, ignoring the players because they both made it to the semis, they're both, let's just say, equally skilled. I think Felgor take that match. I'm not quite sure how the TAC Ops play into it because I don't know what both of these players are playing for TAC Ops. There you go. So I reckon, based on that the final is going to be Felgor versus Felgor. I just realized I did actually predict that. Okay. That would be fire. I'd love it. It would also be so embarrassing. But I could see it being Felgor versus. I could see it being anything, obviously. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if on both tables it comes down to exactly what it came down to in the last game, which was a critical role swings hard one way or the other. Like, I wouldn't be at all surprised. So with that said, let's jump forwards into looking at the final matchup. Just finished that match and the semis, or the quarters, sorry. We're going into the finals, and we now know that the finals are going to be Ace with his Mandrakes into Dan with his Canoptic Circle. So, yes, I got it wrong on both counts. The Felgors lost. Cool. So, you know what? This is nice and easy because I've already explained my thoughts on the Mandrake versus Canoptic Circle matchup, and I'm not going to change my opinion. I think that Ace will win. I think Mandrakes have a good match into Canoptic Circle. There you go. Now, I will say again, and it happened again at the end in the wrap up here from the Canoptic Circle with the Felgors. That was the one that was streamed. You know, it was. They both kind of said, yeah, it was a good even game until turn 3, and then the dice just went insane, and like the Felgor couldn't do anything, and the Canoptic Circle didn't die, and when they did, they just reanimated, and then they also just they both kind of say, yeah, you kind of diced him again, didn't you? If you go back and watch it, which I don't recommend, it takes so long. Like, these are 3-hour rounds. No, sorry, I think today's actually 4 hours with a 1-hour break. But they finish much earlier than that, to be clear. But it's just like, oh my gosh, it's really quite frustrating to see top level games come down to I diced you. And it's like, if I'm honest, that's genuinely not what I want in my competitive game. Anyway, with that gripe done, Mandrakes versus Canoptic in the final. Let's see who wins. Go. The final is just wrapping up, and it looks very much like Ace is going to take it. I don't want to say easily, but pretty easily. So before we go to that and confirm it, and I kind of talk through the final match from my perspective, I did want to quickly check on a few things here, which obviously I brought up last time. So, interesting things for you and I. Where did some of the factions that I was interested in turn up? Battleclade topped out at 90. Exaction Squad, 114. There are 130 players, just to clarify. This guy managed to get, I think, 3 wins and a draw, and he's still 114. That is a Shark Tank of an event. Jeez, like, he's still got 3 whole wins, and he's 114. I don't even know what happened there. Rattlings, a really interesting one. A lot of people currently feel that Rattlings actually have a pretty good game, thanks to Plant Banner, Envoy, whatever, and using your Raider to zoom up and do crazy things. People have been saying, no, they're really, really good at the moment. To get a 39, obviously 39 is good, but it's not that good, is it? So that's interesting. Farstalkers. And then a 34 for Farstalkers. Just very briefly looking at Canoptech, there's obviously a lot that have very low numbers or placings. Deathwatch, kind of the same story. So I'm just trying to point out that, firstly, just raw numbers, I am not in any way, shape, or form surprised that both Canoptic and Deathwatch have quite a lot of placings, quite high. because there's so damn many of them. Statistically, it had to happen. Raveners, oh, you know what? Raveners didn't do too well, which is really interesting. I know a lot of people have said good things about them. Nemesis Claw, 13, again, also haven't done particularly well. I mean, obviously 13 is good, no doubt, but I mean, the 35 is basically alongside the Rattlings and the Farstalkers. So honestly, some really interesting results from this tournament so far. And as I say, I'm 90% sure that Mandrakes are going to win. And with that said, let's snap the fingers again and come straight back into the final, and I will discuss what I know of this game. Okay, and behind me, you see the final. We see that Ace there managed to win it. The Mandrakes won. It was 10-15. Mandrakes, obviously. And with that said, how do we feel about that? Ace played a very defensive game. Dice went his way when they needed to, not to an extreme view, like they kind of there was no dicing. The dice seemed up and down for both players in this one, which is what you like to see. Kept a lot of his guys on the back line behind his wall. He played flank, which was absolutely key. Of course, you're going to play flank with Mandrakes. It would be crazy not to. It's such an easy thing for them to score. One thing that I didn't realize about flank, actually, which is super interesting, clearly, because I haven't played flank before, because I haven't played a team that would score it particularly well, to my knowledge. If you score your flank on turn 2, cool. And then if you score that same flank again the next turn, you score it. You score 2 VP from a single flank, which is insane. That's so, I didn't realize that. So you can legit have one guy just sat at the back of the enemy's board, just scoring you all your VP. Really, really good. Especially for Mandrakes, obviously. They got a big boost from that tack up, although I would like to point out that, yes, flank is nice for them, but their previous one with infiltration, whatever that was, surveillance, was still outrageously good for them. Like, that was their go-to tack up, and it was good for them, nobody else. Well, commandos. I don't think that flank is like the decisive thing that has made Mandrakes good. I think they have a good match into the far less flexible Canoptex. Canoptex are a relatively stationary team. As soon as you've moved them off of their nexus, they lose a lot of their power. The access to accurate 2 going is tough. And sure enough, in this matchup, Dan had to make a lot of very difficult decisions, I imagine, to be in the spot that he needed to be, but then his nexus couldn't be there to support his guys. His guys are still incredibly strong. Obviously, he still banished multiple people to the Shadow Realm. It was definitely an interesting one. The game went closer than I anticipated it would. I will say that. But the final score of 10-15 is pretty solid. A solid win, we can definitely say that. I will now critique GW and their tournament organizational skills. Terrain was moving constantly. I do not know why they cannot just blue tack the terrain. Like, it would solve so many problems. I do not think either person actually got an advantage from the terrain, because luckily they were playing on Tomb World, and so it's actually quite much easier than on Volcus. Quite easy to place your guys, your terrain, sorry, back in the right place after it's been nudged, because obviously it's all on grid lines, so it's kind of okay for it to be knocked a bit. Very easy to replace, but it just shouldn't happen in the first place. Likewise, you should be blue tacking down your objectives, etc., etc. Also, a little bit of an awkward note for everybody, but as I'm sure I've mentioned before, but that was ages ago now from me. But these are 3-hour rounds, except on this final. I think this day, so the semis and the finals were 4-hour rounds, and this was the first game that actually went into the 4th hour. Every other game finished before it hit the 3-hour mark. You know, sometimes only just. But it was in general an acceptable speed, I felt. However, if we must, I mean, I think it was, what was it? It was about 3 hours and 10 minutes. That is a long game. If you go to play 40k, not at Worlds, because GW is very slow. They like to let these games fully play out. But I know that at the UKTC, they do 3-hour rounds for 40k. Why is Kill Team taking longer than that? Right? They would have timed out if it was a 40k match, which is absolutely insane. Again, this is not an issue on the players. This is an issue on the GW organization. I genuinely believe that Kill Team, the game they just played, 2 very good players, I'm not knocking them at all. was not Kill Team. I do not think Kill Team should ever go above 2.5 hours. And the only reason I say 2.5 is because I am taking into account a lot of factors, by which I mean the hassle of jet lag from a lot of players going over to the US, which is that you could have a big 8-hour time gap. I don't know what it is. And then also language barriers. I genuinely think that the max time should be 2.5. But even then, I would say for this, because it's an invitational, everybody turning up knows the game. And so because of that, I think they should all be playing hour-and-a-half games. And then the half hour is added for leniency on jet lag and language issues. So really, it should be a 2-hour game. 2.5, because I'm being super lenient. I would not play a 2.5-hour game. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's my local game store. I don't care if it's a tournament. As soon as we hit that 2 hours, I'm chill. I'm done. I could stop playing now. I'm bored. I don't need to win that much. Very legitimately, I think that the game is so much more fun at an hour 15. That's assuming that everything's set up, etc., etc. Hour 15 round is so much more fun. Is what it is. Okay, I've said my piece. Moving on. Thank you. So with the final locked in and Ace, I believe he won, and he has been world champion not last year, not the year before. I think he was second the last 2 years, but I believe he was world champion 3 years before. He has now returned. He has risen from the ashes. We shall no longer call him Ace. We shall call him the Phoenix, I suppose. I haven't run that past him. Excellent. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hey, if you made it to the end of the video, I'd like to give you a big triple hello. Wow, so wholesome. Truly the wholesomeness notion of ours in the world. Glass half dead.